All right, so we're going to go over my reflection of working at the kinesiology internship at the summer camp. First off, what did I learn? Organization and structure, super important. You want to set that tone early in the week. Let them know this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to work, this is what you need to do in this situation, and these are the rules, this is acceptable, this isn't, and this is what's going to happen if you break these rules. And just make those expectations clear right off the bat. Because if you do that early, you set that tone early, it's going to be a lot smoother. Whereas if you don't set that tone early, you're always going to be trying to get back to that spot, and it's going to be an uphill battle to get there. Other thing, adaptability. Some days the kids are going to be tired. Some days they're going to be in a bad mood. Some games are going to work well. Some games aren't going to work well. So just being able to think on your feet, come up with solutions, come up with fun stuff to do on the fly, super important. My favorite part, first off, being physically active, being in the sun, moving around, playing sports, really fun. My personality type, so I enjoyed that. And then more importantly was all the staff. I made a bunch of friends. I had a lot of good conversations and a lot of fun working at the camp. So overall, my interactions with the other staff and the campers as a whole, really had a good time with all that. So it's pretty special for me. Favorite age group, I like working with the 8-year-olds. They had enough of the physical and mental skill sets to be able to really fully engage in the sports, but they also had the willingness to engage in the sports. Whereas the younger kids, like 5 to 6, maybe they would have the willingness, but they didn't necessarily have the physical and mental skill set to fully engage. And then the older kids definitely had the physical skill set, but sometimes they get a little bit into that too cool for school mentality, and they wouldn't want to do anything. And I was that age. I was like that, so I get it. It's not a big deal. It just made it a little more difficult to work with, which is why the 8-year-olds were definitely my favorite group to work with. Adjustments, I went back, I read some of my first lesson plans. Honestly, they weren't that great. So I would say as we went on, coming up with activities that they would like to do that would go over well. And the big thing was competitions. I realized that putting a competitive aspect into it really skyrocketed engagement. So always being creative, coming up with new ways that are fun. And it didn't have to be the most complicated thing. Just a little game is something as simple as throwing a frisbee as far as possible was something that they really like to do. So just coming up with some type of competition to keep engagement high. And then perception of what we're doing. Kids are always watching. If you're playing with a ball, if you're kind of messing around, they take that as permission to then them mess around. And as an adult, you can come back in and stop that quickly, but the children don't necessarily have that same ability. So by you setting a good example, keeping that engagement consistent, it's easier to keep the whole day level and running smoothly. Because once they start, you get that group mentality of everyone starts doing their own thing and playing around, then it's going to be a lot harder to bring that back in and get back on track. Improvements for the camp, not a whole lot to say here. I had a really good time. One thing, lacrosse was pretty hard to teach. I played lacrosse in high school. I think there's 2 major problems. One, a general familiarity out here. Not a lot of kids play lacrosse, so it's a little harder from that perspective. And 2, unlike basketball, soccer, handball, where you have a uniform ball, lacrosse is highly reliant on how your head's strung up. So to pick up a random stick and to throw accurately and consistently is a pretty hard thing to do, which I think definitely caused issues with us trying to get the skill sets to be able to play ultimate lacrosse or step up to the next level. And then the last week we had a lot of kids who played baseball. So we talked to one of the parents, and one of the kids brought in a wiffle ball bat and a couple wiffle balls. And we had a lot of fun doing that. Really good engagement. The kids loved it. It was simple. So I think maybe swapping out lacrosse for wiffle ball could be a positive change for the future. My personal sport was handball. Some things that worked really well. Relay races for throwing, one-on-ones trying to get open. Games like hot potato, try to get the ball moving fast. And then big games, they just loved playing big games. The one downside is once we started playing full court big games, that was all they wanted to do, so it made it a little more difficult to rein it back in the next day in the next session to do more normal drills. Something that didn't work that great was like the 3-on-3 keep away games, and that's something like we did in the sample lesson, and we do in soccer to warm up all the time. Like you're just in the middle. Once you get the ball, you swap out. For every reason, it just didn't translate that well with them, which is surprising because like I enjoy it. It's really fun. It's simple. It's engaging, but it just never got that reaction that I was hoping for. So I don't know if I was presenting that wrong or what was going on there, but just never really panned out quite as good as I thought it would. And then other takeaways, pennies are super important. I noticed that if you didn't have pennies, some kids could cope with it, but other kids would really struggle, and then they would kind of disappear from the game because they wouldn't be able to remember who was on their team or remember quick enough to be within the flow of the game. Pennies, super simple, super important. Keep it fun. Like I said, perception, they're watching you. So if you're engaged, you're having fun, the kids are more likely to be engaged. And then the last thing, I just think just overall is like own your mistakes. If you like run into a kid, you knock someone down, you throw a ball and you hit someone, apologize, own it. Like just the same thing you would expect from them. You're setting that example. And then just treat each kid, like really try to listen to them. Some days, like they just might be in a bad mood. Maybe they didn't sleep well. Maybe they didn't eat breakfast. Maybe they forgot their snack. Like you never know what's going on. So just try to be empathetic and really listen to them and hear them out. And sometimes just giving them an ear to listen to for a little bit can really make a positive impact for their day.